Good evening, Haverford. I'm Drew,
And I'm Ken,
and this is the Drew and Ken Show.
the Ken and Drew Show.
It's Drew and Ken Show.
Ken and Drew. Okay, well, so today, after our long hiatus due
Yes.
to unforeseen problems that we could
Well,
not
what-
expect or predict,
Well, we missed one because Halloween,
and
then the radio just didn't work that following week.
and then you wanted to play volleyball,
Yes, and then I wanted to play men's volleyball.
men's volleyball. All right.
So basically, on that track, if you are interested in playing men's volleyball for the Haverford High School, you can go to Chestnut Wald from 6:39 for the open gyms every Thursday. Be there or be square.
We haven't gone 5 minutes into this radio show, and you've already started talking about volleyball. But
Yep.
with that being said, today we have a very special topic.
We're talking about how the vending machine stole $1 from me earlier.
All right. Today, we're talking about
Politics.
the Democratic debate specifically.
Yes. Now, we kind of have two ways that we're doing this. Ken actually watched the debate. I was lazy and didn't watch the debate.
To be fair,
So Ken has all the information on the debate from last night itself, whereas I have information and just background, I don't want to call it background knowledge, but just previous knowledge from knowing okay, the candidates are about this and that,
and
stuff like that.
To be fair, the debate happened last night from 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. and that is very difficult for any school student to really want to do. I disregarded a lot of sleep to do that, and I do not recommend that you do the same for future debates. But with that being said, the way we've done our research is that I'm tackling a lot of the minor candidates. I did my research on them, and there's a lot of fun characters, but overall, the ones we're really going to be focusing a lot of our time on, and the ones that Drew has the most research on, are the big candidates, the one with the most to say and the most to lose in this Democratic debate. And
Yes.
so now that you finished adjusting your mic,
Let us begin.
yes.
So
Those were noises. In the other room.
Yes. Okay, so I say first, we need to hit the big boys.
Sure.
So that the front runners so far in this race have clearly been, for most of the time, Biden, Warren, Sanders, and now appearing out of I don't want to say nowhere, but Pete Buttigieg.
Yes.
Ken, I think we should start with Biden.
All right.
Biden he's been in politics for a long time. He's had
Yes.
3 presidential runs in total. 2020, 2000. He's running for president in 2020. He ran for president in 2008 against Obama. Because there really wasn't any president at that time. There was no incumbent.
Yeah.
So, and then he ran in 88. So he's been around a while, and he's been a senator for a lot longer. He's do you know when he became senator? He's senator
no.
in Delaware.
Yeah, Biden's been in politics for a very long time, and he's very experienced in how he conducts politics and how he goes about it, and that's very evident through how he's articulating himself through these debates. In the 5th debate, especially, he was very calm. He was very composed. Although I personally wouldn't say he had the greatest arguments out of the bunch. He was very professional throughout the entire debate, but we'll get into those specifics later. Do you have anything else to say?
I mean, with regards to Biden, he's had quite a few controversies, but and we'll talk about them. Most of which stems from civil rights kind of
Yes.
stuff.
And
One misconception is a lot of people. Okay, so everyone pretty much at this point knows he was Obama's VP, and though he's very similar to Obama, he's not running as Obama 2.0. He's he's different in some regards, but very similar in others. One case where he's very similar is he's affirmative on he wants the Affordable Care Act. That's what he wants to implement as his healthcare policy in office. But I mean, like, there's no real clear difference. They're very, very similar, but Biden essentially will be very similar in ideology and practice to Obama.
And this differs greatly from some of the more progressive candidates, and those are mostly the ones that are left, to be honest. Most candidates right now will call for Medicare for all. We'll get into that later when we talk about Sanders and Warren, since they're the main advocates.
Yeah, they're the main progressives. Yeah. I feel like on the scale, if we use left and right, Biden is like kind of close to the center, and so is Buttigieg. And then Yang is a little farther left than those two. But Biden and Sanders are definitely the farthest left. They're the most progressive. Sanders even dubbing himself a democratic socialist.
So at the current moment, Biden stands at 29.8% in the polls. He's the front runner, and he has been for most of the time. He's gone through some controversies, and I wouldn't say he's had the strongest performance in any of the debates so far. But
mostly because in all the debates, all other candidates just try to flame him the entire time.
He's very unpopular among the other candidates, but somehow he manages to stay afloat. I would guess through his name recognition and through his relatively moderate and modest personality. And so Biden has stood at the front for a very long time, and at the moment it looks like he's on track to become the presidential nominee. But we don't know that. And we are seeing very prevalent competition, particularly from our next candidate, who is Bernie Sanders.
So, Sanders has been in politics also for a long time. He's kind of old. He's a senator from Vermont and has been for quite a few years. He was an independent for many years, recently switching to being a Democrat. He ran. Did he run initially as a Democrat in 2016 or as a Republican? Not a Republican, an independent. Either way, he ran in 2016 against. He just ran in 2016. There really wasn't any incumbent that year either. So, but he ran in 2016, had a lot of support, but in the end, had to concede to Hillary Clinton. But in that regard, that brings up what Sanders is really. He's dubbed himself a democratic socialist. And socialism kind of has a bad rep in the United States. As anyone who's picked up a history book, I feel like I'm repeating myself at this point over the last couple of weeks with saying that. But as anyone who's picked up a history textbook, the U.S. does not like anything communist or anything socialist, and hasn't since the Gilded Age.
Yeah.
So, and the Gilded Age is like the Industrial Revolution kind of stuff, like big booming capitalism, stuff like that. And so Sanders, for dubbing himself that socialist role, has really gotten this bad rep. And I mean, I can kind of understand that, but it also doesn't help when other people in politics are continuously just like slamming all types of progressivism and dubbing it socialism, whereas a lot of progressivism is really good. It's good for the country. It's good for its people. It's just overall pretty good. But that's also my views.
Yeah.
But so Sanders is, would you say he's more or less progressive than Warren?
To be honest, they both have very, very similar policies. So regardless of where either of them stand in relation to each other, they're probably the most far left of any of the candidates in this race at the moment. Sanders, although he dubs himself a democratic socialist, to be honest, he's not really as far left as many in America, especially those against him will argue. He's very progressive in an American sense, but in say the viewpoint of a European, it's not even close. He can't compare. So Sanders, although he's very far left on an American spectrum, on something like a European spectrum, he's relatively normal, I would say. So that's the kind of stance he takes in general politics. Did you want to talk about specific policies?
See, now as far as Sanders, I don't know. I'm not as well versed in like his sort of policies and his version of politics. I know he is running on a Medicare for all stance, along with most other candidates. If you ask my dad that question, he'll tell you like if Medicare can work for all, he'll shoot you down immediately, because it will bankrupt the country. But they each have their plans on what they're gonna do and how basically just saying we need change as far as healthcare and to be honest, in this country we do. We need to definitely reform our healthcare and how we do it, but it's not very clear on how we should go about doing that.
Yeah, to put it in a more general sense, healthcare in America is extremely far behind in terms of world development.
Yeah.
We, in order to give insurance companies large discounts on hospital expenses, what we've done is we've implemented huge markups on many of the products that we have there. I guess I wouldn't say products, but goods and medicine. Yeah. Like a cough drop costs $10 in a modern American hospital, which is insane. So what Medicare for All promises to do is it promises to shoot those prices right down and to make make these services available and affordable for pretty much everybody. There are different ways of going about that, but in general, what Sanders argues is that he wants to raise taxes in order to pay for this law, but in general, he argues that if you do the math, with Medicare for all, you as an American pay less for healthcare services, even with those added taxes.
And a common theme throughout this broadcast is going to be that most of the candidates will want to have a tax of some sort added.
Yes.
Be it from a value-added tax in the case of Andrew Yang to a wealth tax in the case of Warren.
Well, I'm not.
We're not even done Sanders.
Yeah. So Sanders, he currently stands at second place with 19.3% of the vote. Still very far behind Biden, more than 10%, but he has shot up recently. Warren was in front of him for a very long time, and he's just now started to plateau, or not plateau, but he shoot up. Yeah.
Another thing that I just remembered about Sanders is he is an advocate for free public college.
Yes.
And being seniors going into college soon and expecting massive debt in the near future, we would very much appreciate that. I think that speaks for a lot of students out there who are just trying to get an education so that they can go in the future. Because nowadays, especially in the United States and in the rest of the world, you can't really be well off, I guess, without a college education, a college degree. Because so many jobs nowadays require that you have that stuff.
Yeah.
And especially the good paying jobs in the STEM market. And the business market nowadays isn't even the most profitable anymore. It's the STEM market. So like engineering technologies, like innovation, research, stuff like that. Anything that has to deal with science or math together, that's pretty much STEM.
Mm-hmm.
And so those careers have just made tons of growth over the past decade or so. They've just been getting bigger and bigger, and other job markets are just shrinking. Especially with what we were going to talk about 2 weeks ago. We were going to talk about automation, and we didn't get to. But I assure you, we're going to talk about automation a little bit in this broadcast.
So, Sanders in the fifth Democratic debate, although he did not get a lot of time to speak, to be honest, he has continued the momentum that he acquired in the fourth debate, which, if you'll recall, he had a heart attack right before, but he came back with a fire, and he easily had the strongest performance out of any candidate in that one. I would not say he showed exactly the same fire this time around, but he definitely opened up with some great lines. He's introduced some great ideas, and I'm excited to see where he goes further because he's been on the rise recently, and we don't know how far he's gonna go. But with that said, I think we're done talking about Bernie for now. And so now we're going to move on to our third candidate, Elizabeth Warren.
So Warren is the mother of controversies. I feel like in this group, and I mean her controversies are not without like good. I don't know, like good. What's the word I'm thinking of? Like good reasoning, like.
Yeah.
Like her, recently, not even really recently, but a couple months ago, she announced that she would want to implement a wealth tax. And now what a wealth tax is it would be just if you make this much money, or if you have a net worth of this much, or you just not even own, but if you possess this amount of money or greater, you will have that wealth tax on you, and that's like a 1 or 2% tax, like annually, on these, on this wealth, and you're talking like billions and billions of dollars. If you take 1% of a billion, you get $100 million. Now multiply that by however many billionaires there are in this country, and you're talking about a lot of money that the government could be getting for not a lot of loss for them. They're losing 1% of their wealth. That's not a lot.
At least that's the argument Warren makes. Yeah.
And say this money just goes all to the government. Think about where that money can be spent. It can be spent paying off the debt that we owe to the citizens of America and to other countries. It can be spent on education, which will be huge because this another thing we're lagging behind on. It can be spent on improving healthcare in America. Just tons of opportunities for a 1% tax. It's a little crazy to think about, but that's the reality of it. And what, I'm rambling?
Yeah. Just so we have a warning now for rambles in these. But no, hey,
I do ramble.
I'm not saying it was bad. I'm not saying it was bad. It was just like
I'm getting my point across.
You know, I got my spider sense tingling. I could feel it coming.
I was almost done pretty much talking.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
But just the opportunities that are possible. And I think that that's a great plan in my opinion. I think that 1% can lead to better futures for the 99%.
Mm-hmm.
So
Warren sits at 18.5% currently in the polls. She's in third place, and she has been dropping considerably in recent years. Well, not years, months. But Warren, I would say, did not have a particularly strong performance in the fifth debate. She wasn't notable. She didn't stand out as much as I would have wanted her to. But she is very professional, and she is holding herself up very well. She just hasn't been on the attack, or hasn't been attacked like she was in the fourth debate. So overall, she did okay. But but next we have a particularly interesting candidate who has recently surged up into fourth place, and his name is Pete Buttigieg.
So Pete Buttigieg, he's an interesting guy. He's the mayor of South Bend, Indiana, where
Former.
Oh wait, he's not the mayor anymore?
I don't think so.
I thought he was. Anyway, he basically he's got a lot of policy to talk about, ranging from gun changes as far as guns to just everyday policies. I don't know. Like, I didn't do my research on Pete too well, if I'm gonna be honest, but I think personally he's definitely one of the top candidates. He's another moderate along with Biden, and he appeals to a greater number of voters.
Yes.
And sure, he's not really leading the polls right now, but he's still up there. He's made it to the 5th debate, whereas he's one out of 10 candidates now that have qualified for the debates, and there's still tons of candidates that are running, but that's going to be narrowed down further and further. And I think he has the momentum. He's been surging recently, but without further ado, let's just get into his policies. So Ken,
All right.
what do you have?
So I would say that Pete Buttigieg is would obviously be closest related to Biden in terms of policy, although he's not advocating for the same exact Obama era ideas that Biden will advocate for. Buttigieg does have a very similar outlook on politics. He's countered the idea for Medicare for All by introducing an idea called Medicare for All Who Want It, which is an opt-in program which would allow Americans to choose whether or not they want to either keep their private insurance or move to a government option, and it would be completely optional. Citizens can choose no matter where you are on the a social hierarchy. So,
Which is honestly a great plan, because then you're not saying, okay, let's give all the citizens in America this,
yes.
when not everybody in America needs it,
Mm-hmm.
if we're being honest. And so then that would save countless dollars,
Mm-hmm.
which is perfect, because that's one of the main problems with Medicare for All, is that how are we going to pay for it?
Yeah.
But Pete, he's one of the dudes that actually has a plan, and I think that's great. I think it's great that he has a plan, because many of the other candidates are just saying Medicare for all, Medicare
Yeah.
for all, Medicare for all, and they're really just advertising, yeah, if I win, we're gonna do this, but they're not really saying, okay, how are we gonna do it?
Yeah. And Pete Buttigieg, it's a promising idea to have a federal opt-in program, and his argument is that it's a stepping stone. If we want to introduce Medicare for All later down the road, that would be fine, but we need to make sure that it works first in our implementation.
Exactly.
And this is a very nice, very realistic plan of how we would actually do something like this. And so this policy in particular is very, very interesting. Personally, I would say that Buttigieg is the most charismatic out of any candidate in the race so far. He's a very, very good speaker, and he appeals to a lot of Americans because he seems a little bit more like an everyman. Although he hasn't had a Washington experience per se, working in Senate or the House or anything like that, but he argues that his experience in a local field, it gives him the experience of the people, what they want, and he wants to implement that kind of policy in how he would conduct himself as president. He's also homosexual, and he uses that argument as him understanding the issues of LGBT rights, and he wants to forward and further bring that issue, so that we can address it and solve the remaining problems that are left with that community.
Yeah, and that's also another hot topic in politics right now, and it was a hot topic a couple years ago. It still kind of is, but it's just a big kind of thing that this is one of the I wouldn't say one of the first,
Mm-hmm.
but one of the first real momentous candidates that is gay.
Yeah.
Which is huge for the community.
Mm-hmm. And under Obama, we did legalize gay marriage, and that was a huge accomplishment. But there is an argument to be had that wasn't enough, and that there still have to be further actions taken. by the government in order to make sure that these people feel secure and safe within their country. Although that is a hot topic, and we're not, and
Let's talk for another
yeah.
time.
It's very subjective, so we're not really gonna jump into that stuff. But Pete Buttigieg, currently standing at 7.8% in the polls right now, and he is a very promising candidate. If Biden drops out, then he is the next most likely option for moderate voters. And in the fifth debate, he did surprisingly well. He had some standout moments, and he stood up to Amy Klobuchar and Tulsi Gabbard. Although he faltered a little bit, he's definitely shown that he will not back down under opposition, and that is admirable. I just want to remind you that you're listening to WHHS 99.9 FM Radio Rediscovered. But with that, going back to Pete Buttigieg, he's a very notable candidate. He has a lot of potential to grow, and it's exciting to see where he goes. But that's pretty much all we have to say on him for the time being. So the next candidate we have is Kamala Harris.
Now, I don't have a lot on Kamala Harris. I don't know a whole lot about Kamala Harris. I know that she does. The one thing that I know is that she loves to roast Biden. Like she really does. Like every time I see a clip of her, it's her roasting Biden, pretty much. But so I'm gonna let Ken take it away because I don't know too much about Kamala Harris. So Ken?
We're getting into a point in this discussion, although we're only 5 candidates in, we're getting to a point where some candidates just fail to really stand out in their policies and how they carry themselves. Kamala Harris is one of those candidates, although she is the 5th highest in the polls. She has failed to really bring forth policies that make her unique, and that's one of the growing problems for her as a candidate. She is a very adamant feminist and stands specifically for African American rights. In the 5th debate, she was very prominent in asserting that there needs to be something done to make sure that these people have equal representation and equal opportunities in America. She stands for Medicare for all, but overall, she really doesn't have much to add into a discussion, at least herself. Personally, whatever she has to say on a certain issue, there's another candidate that's better suited to do that. And that shows in the 5th debate, where she failed to really stand out among a crowd of candidates who interwoven within them, all her policies can be said better by someone else. Mm-hmm. So currently she stands at 4% in the polls, and she's dropped from, I believe, 5.3% last time. So I would predict that she's on a downward trend, and other candidates are going to pick up her slack. But that's pretty much all I really have to say about her. Yeah. Yes.
So, one of those candidates who's definitely going to pick up her slack is Andrew Yang.
And over here on the Ken and Drew show, we have a lot to say about Andrew Yang.
Yeah. So when I was doing my research, I started researching Andrew Yang, and then only researched Andrew Yang, and a little bit of Biden, by accident. So that's an oopsie on my part. But I'd also like to, real quick, jot in and remind everybody that's listening, if you have questions, comments, concerns, you may call us on the radio station at 610-446-7111. Again, that's 610-446-7111. All right, and so without further ado, Andrew Yang.
All right. So Andrew Yang is a very interesting candidate with a lot to say. He first of all, he's Asian, represent. But he has championed a lot of his campaign on the idea of universal basic income, or the freedom dividend, which suggests that if he were elected president, he would want there to be a dividend of $1,000 per month to every American over the age of 18. So this idea, although it sounds a little bit crazy at first, he believes that a universal basic income will allow, first of all, unemployed workers to have more economic security in order to transition from jobs without having to fear about losing their living income and moving into a job where they're worse off, often considered underemployed. So his idea is that he wants to introduce a basic living wage so that no American adult is below the level of extreme poverty. Everybody receives a living wage so that they can pay their bills or that they can support themselves while transitioning between jobs. And the way he's going to pay for this is a value-added tax.
Among other things.
Yeah.
So, the freedom dividend. So the freedom dividend, as Ken kind of said, is a type of social security that guarantees a certain amount of money to every citizen of a governed population. So that governed population is America. Specifically, all adults 18 and over. They will get $1,000 per month or $12,000 a year, which is huge. Many people in America don't even really make that much, and that's also huge for the millennials nowadays, and anyone that's just in college. It's huge for them because it just helps out, because a lot of these people that are in poverty and extreme poverty don't really have the money to go and spend and even on the basic necessities like food and water. Or shelter, like a home. People don't have that stuff, but if you give them $1,000 a month, then people have that extra money that they need to get groceries, the extra money that they need to pay their rent, stuff like that. It's huge. It's a great thing. And so one thing that Ken didn't cover, and that I suggested that I would cover earlier, is the reason for this. And Andrew Yang's reasoning specifically is automation. Now, automation specifically, according to the website of Andrew Yang's candidacy, according to his website, automation has already made approximately 4 million manufacturing jobs obsolete, and it'll make many more jobs obsolete in the next 12 years. And he says that politicians just aren't ready for that. Aren't ready for that amount of unemployment and that amount just of obsolescence of jobs. And that's really big. That's a lot of Americans that could be losing their jobs to automation. And one thing that will help that is a UBI, a universal basic income, the freedom dividend. So currently, the labor participation in America is 62.7%, and that's the amount of people that are actually participating in work, pretty much, which is lower than it has been in decades. And another thing, according to his website, is that 1 in 5 working age men are not in the workforce currently, which is also huge. You think, okay, let's say America is 300 million people, half that's men, 150 million people, 1 out of 5 of them, that's 30 million men that just aren't working. That's a huge number. And it'll get worse with automation. I'm not saying that automation is a bad thing. Automation makes the most dangerous, boring, and repetitive jobs obsolete and allows those workers that are currently there to find a new opportunity in a better, safer environment. And that's also good. So automation has its flaws and its benefits. But so with that all being said, the value added tax. So that's one of the reasons, that's one of the things that is going to be used to pay for this UBI. the universal basic income. Now, according to Andrew Yang's website, the value-added tax will be a 10% tax on goods, and he will also consolidate welfare programs. Now, according to his website, between 500 and 600 billion dollars a year is spent on the welfare programs. Now, if you consolidate all of this, that's a huge amount of money that you're saving. But you can also use that to pay a lot of that money you can use to pay for the universal basic income, and anything else that's left over, you still just keep using for welfare programs or extra help, stuff like that. And so many people unfamiliar with a value-added tax will probably be asking, what is it? Now, value-added tax is not really used in the United States. In the United States, we have sales tax. Pennsylvania specifically is a 6% sales tax. So say you're at the store and you find you're getting a drink. It's $1 for a water bottle. All right, you buy that water bottle and the cashier brings it up. It's actually 6 cents more because there's a 6% sales tax. So 6% of that value that it was on the shelf is added on when you pay for it. Now, what a value-added tax is that tax number is already on there. So when you buy, say you buy that water bottle, and so say we decide to use Andrew Yang's value-added tax of 10%. Okay, so then when you buy it, it's 10 cents more than what it was before. So it's $1.10. That extra 10 cents is because of that value-added tax. The tax is already added on to the value of the item, so you don't notice it. And that's what works. It's not a surprise to you. And if, for example, where this is already in use, European Union. European Union uses the value-added tax to pay for lots of programs. I don't know which specifically, but it does. And but I think it's a great thing because then you know what you're actually paying for rather than you're paying for all this crap and you end up spending you end up thinking you're going to spend $100, then you spend $106. Or if you're in a state that has a higher tax, you spend more money. And I think it's good to know what you're actually spending. So value-added tax by itself is good. Rather than just having a sales tax, because then you know what you're actually paying for. But if we added this value-added tax, oh my god, I'm saying added a lot. But if you're adding the tax, that'll create a huge revenue boost for the government, and you'll be allowed to spend that money on welfare programs, social programs, whatever, or other things if you make an excess. And again, what I said earlier, taxes allow you to pay off debt. Currently, the United States has something like 19 to 20 trillion dollars, trillion with a T, dollars in debt, which is huge. And Cam, I'm sorry, I'm rambling. I'm gonna pass off the mic to you.
Alright. So Andrew Yang's value-added tax is a bit of a counter to Elizabeth Warren's wealth tax. Andrew Yang argues that a wealth tax, although it seems like the common sense solution to something like the wealth gap we see in the United States today, he argues that a value-added tax is the time-tested way of doing something like this. So his counter is that countries like Sweden and Germany have tried implementing wealth taxes, and within the first year of their implementation, they were all repealed, and they were replaced with a value-added tax, which is still around today. So Andrew Yang is a very strong opposer to the idea of a wealth tax, and he's one of the few in this in these debates to offer a counter solution. But that being said, he also stands for Medicare for all, like a lot of the candidates in this race. And in the 5th Democratic debate specifically, he did not get really any time to speak. He got less than 7 minutes total in the 2 hours that the debate lasted, and he only really got a time to fully introduce his points in the closing speeches. And in that, I would argue that he had the best one of everybody else, because he could really summarize everything he stood for and he could do it in a way that appealed to the working class Americans. With that being said, he stands at 2.8% in the polls, and he is a very interesting candidate to watch, but it's very unlikely that he'll go on much further than being a prominent minor candidate. So is there anything else you wanted to say to wrap up Andrew Yang? Or?
Personally, I think he's a great candidate. I just don't think he has the momentum.
Yeah.
But I think his ideas and potential policies are amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that something like that should be tested on a small scale in America, UBI potentially.
Well, Andrew Yang also advocates for universal basic income because the oil money in Alaska has been implemented in a universal basic income in there, and it has been used to lower unemployment and to increase economic security for those citizens. So Alaska has had a very similar system for a long time, and Andrew Yang argues that this kind of system should be implemented throughout the entire United States. Yeah, sorry to interject there. I just wanted to...
It's fine. But I just think it's a great system. Now, I think that's enough for Andrew Yang. We talked for a lot longer on him than we would have any other candidate. So yeah.
So the next candidate on our list is not really a candidate yet. So we're talking about a man who has signed up to be a part of the primaries for certain states, but he's not officially declared his candidacy for president. I'm talking about Michael Bloomberg, the former mayor of New York City, or governor of New York. My bad. Michael Bloomberg is a billionaire. He's been very successful. And as mayor, he's introduced an act called Stop and Frisk, which, if there are any New Yorkers listening, it's a very rough point in that in their history. Stop and Frisk was a police act that allowed random searches and questioning on the street by police officers, and that allowed racial profiling by officers, and it was a really rough patch. Michael Bloomberg is a historically unpopular candidate, although he has huge amounts of name recognition due to his status as governor. He only stands at 2.3% in the polls, and he's had allegations of inappropriate misconduct within his business, which has really set his public record much farther down than most candidates. He's very unpopular and he's very disliked. But if he would to enter the race, he would stand as a moderate candidate that would probably seek to siphon voters from Biden. So if he does enter the debate, he has a lot of name recognition and he has the potential to go far financially due to his status. But if he will, we don't know. So we're gonna move past Michael Bloomberg because he hasn't really had anything to say yet. So our next candidate is Tulsi Gabbard. Tulsi Gabbard is a veteran from the Iraq War. She's a strong advocate for ending regime change wars and the new Cold War, or the arms race between the United States, China, and Russia. Tulsi Gabbard, although not having very much to say in really any of the other topics we've discussed here, she is the largest advocate for international policies, especially her stances on, like I've said before, ending regime change wars. She wants to take out a lot of the money that's been invested in American intervention across the world, and she wants to invest it back into the American people, which I can only assume means that she wants to slash our military budget and bring our soldiers home, but not in the same way that our current president has. She wants to slowly transition our country to where we invest in our people first, and then we invest in ourselves across the world second. That is her stance. And sorry, you want to?
I want to butt in real quick. So one thing that I just remembered was a while ago, former presidential candidate and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton recently I don't really want to say said, but declared that Russia was grooming a Democratic candidate to run against Trump, and declared that it must be Tulsi Gabbard.
Yes.
To which Tulsi Gabbard responded that she was insane. But that brings up another question: Russia. Now, unpopular opinion, Russia, like with the 2016 election, that whole stuff. There's a lot of evidence that backed up that they did try to interfere, seeing as how there were places in all 50 states where the election systems were hacked, and not hacked successfully in all cases, but also with on Facebook, for example, misinformation spread and whatnot, playing a big role and leading to a huge scandal in the White House. Right off the bat for Trump. And I just think that saying that is just huge. But also just, we don't know. I mean, there's no way to really tell unless Russia's like, yep, we're doing this, or if there's conclusive evidence.
Yeah.
But all we can do right now is speculate.
Yeah. And Tulsi Gabbard isn't a particularly interesting candidate for really any of the other issues we discussed today. Anything she said, like Kamala Harris, is better said by other candidates who have much stronger bases of support and have much more meat to back them up in those arguments. But Tulsi Gabbard has brought to the stage these international issues and has forced other candidates to counter her or debate with her on these kinds of issues, and that's huge for a candidate like her. The most we can really ask for a candidate who really doesn't have much chance of moving forward anymore is to just bring more things to the table and force other candidates to either agree with them or at least talk it out with them. With that being said, that's all I really have to say about Tulsi Gabbard. She's an interesting candidate, and she brings a new issue to the table that really hasn't been talked about that much in these debates. So, yeah. She, in the 5th Democratic debate, she didn't have a great performance. She arguably lost an encounter, a scuffle with Pete Buttigieg. They got in a bit of an argument over, what was it? I believe it was international policy, but I could be wrong. But Gabbard is not a very skilled debater. She's not able to hold herself up very well, and that shows through a lot of the things they've discussed. She's done in these debates. With that being said, we're going to be moving on to Amy Klobuchar, who is currently standing at 1.5% in the polls. Like Kamala Harris, she's not particularly interesting, but she is but for a while she has been a prominent moderate candidate.
So to anyone that just heard that, I accidentally moved the mic. I'm trying to move it around a little bit, but not as much as I just did.
I tried to turn off the mic to lessen that, but I ended up cutting off your talking.
That's okay. I'm just adjusting the mic a little bit because I'm trying to move it around.
Amy Klobuchar is a big-time feminist, and she differs from some of the other candidates by instead of opting to support Medicare for all, Amy Klobuchar supports expanding Medicare/Medicaid, which is a little bit like Buttigieg's idea, where he wants to create a stepping stone. That's kind of what she wants to do. She wants to slowly expand it so that maybe if we want to implement Medicare for all later on, then we can do that, and we're just going to be slowly expanding it so that we can cover more people in a much more manageable way. She's talked a lot about economic equality, especially for women, and she's advocated for a female president, or at least more female female representation within politics in itself, which has been a hot topic for, especially in recent years. Which, of course, we're not going to get into that specifically, because we're not really going for huge subjective arguments in here. But Amy Klobuchar is a very strong symbol of those kinds of issues, and she has spoken very prominently about that in the fifth debate, where although she didn't have a breakout performance, she had some good points and she held herself up relatively well. Although I would not say it's enough to really proper up into into a much more prominent candidate. But at this point, the best she can do is put on her best face and look her best, so that maybe she might be considered for a vice presidency, or her reputation becomes even more favorable within the political scene. With that being said, she stands at 1.5% of the polls, and we're going to be moving on to Cory Booker. Do you want to say anything? I feel like you haven't said anything in a while.
I don't know anything about Cory Booker. Like, honestly, these candidates, like, I know about the big, I apologize for the
Yeah, don't worry about it.
I know mostly about, like, the big guys, like Biden, Warren, Sanders, like, those people, like, them. I know a lot about them. But I don't know a lot about the smaller candidates, like Cory Booker, and who else is left on your list? Tom, what's his last name?
Steyer.
Yeah. See, I don't even know his last name. That's how bad I know the candidates. Like,
yeah.
So whatever. Like, personally speaking, I don't think these candidates have much of a shot to win the election.
Oh yeah. We're going to be talking about that a little later. We're going to be talking about how what stands for these candidates in the future. But yeah. So moving on with Cory Booker, I guess. He's an African American who stands big on those issues, especially in the fifth debate. He stands for the Green New Deal, and he advocates for Medicare for all. He's one of the few candidates to outright say that he's against the Electoral College, which is very interesting for...
I know Beto O'Rourke did that as well, but, you know, he's not here anymore. I'm personally against the Electoral College, or at least the way it works right now, too.
So Cory Booker is, throughout the beginning of the race, he was a relatively non-combative candidate. He in general, likes to state his arguments, but not really challenge others too much. In the fourth and fifth debates, he's been getting a lot more out there. In the fourth debate, he's dabbled in trying to oppose other candidates aggressively, which, although it didn't turn out too well, it did make him more well known. And in the fifth debate, he had the most standout performance in an argument against Joe Biden. Do you want to talk about that? Because I know you were watching it at lunch.
So basically, Booker had said that he mentioned that Biden said that he is against the legalization of marijuana, and Booker couldn't believe that to the extent that during the debate he asked Biden if he was high while he was saying that, and I think that was just hilarious. But that's like everything I can comment about, pretty much.
And that's the most prominent example of Booker really getting out there and opposing other candidates aggressively, which is great for him because he really needs to get these standout performances to boost his poll numbers if he really wants to get back into the race. Because at the moment, he stands at 1.3% of the polls. But in the fifth debate, I would argue that him really getting out there and aggressively challenging other candidates like he did Biden has brought him to a much more prominent position. And if he qualifies for the sixth debate, which I'm not sure he will, but we'll see, he will likely be able to ride this momentum and hopefully get his poll numbers up. He is he's a promising candidate, but not necessarily a realistic one. So yeah, he did well. He did very well. I would say he had the second best performance, at least personally for him for any of the candidates. But other than that, we don't really have too much to say about him. So we're going to be moving on to the funniest candidate in this debate, Tom Steyer.
So, I believe it was Tom Steyer that my dad said who's the only person that understands Medicare for all
Well,
and Medicare in general. I don't know that for a fact because I don't remember, but I know that he is at the bottom. Like he's at the bottom in the polls, polling at what was that? What is that? 1.3?
Yeah.
1.3%? Yeah, that's pretty bad.
Steyer actually rose in the polls from 0.9%, if you can believe it.
Whoa.
But Tom Steyer is easily the least popular candidate on a national level, but he is loved in a few states, which has brought him to the debate stage. He considers himself an outsider. He wants to bring the opinion of someone who hasn't been clouded by the general Washington perspective. He wants to bring a normal person's perspective into the White House. Drew's leaving the room and the door is squeaking. So I'm just going to be talking about Tom Steyer for a little bit, if you will have me. Tom Steyer is a billionaire. I don't know exactly what he owns, but he has made a lot of money, and he still wants to have a progressive point of view, which is admirable. But what he stands for as a billionaire is a little bit questionable. He wants aggressive climate change reform, which during the fifth debate he went down as saying that upon his first day, if he were to acquire the presidential seat, upon his first day in office, he would introduce a national emergency so that he could address climate change, which is pretty. I'm gonna be honest. It's pretty uninformed for him to say. It would cause a lot more harm than good to declare a national emergency for climate change immediately. I believe that it is something that needs to be talked about a lot more in politics, but Tom Steyer's idea reflects someone who really just wants to be out there a lot more than he wants to introduce great ideas. That being said, he also advocates for certain restrictions on term limits, particularly a 12-year congressional term limit. So he wants to make sure that senators, congressmen, presidents even aren't able to really ride the success of their elections for their entire lives. He wants to cut down on corruption. He wants to make sure that our democracy is for the people. And it's admirable. Again, it's very admirable what he wants to stand for. It's just that he doesn't articulate it very well, and in the debates, in particular, his main argument is that he's the only person that will talk about term limits. He's the only person that will talk about climate change. There was a fun moment in the fifth debate where he specifically called out Biden. He was saying, Biden will not say that climate change is the number one issue facing America. I am the only person who will say that climate change is the number one issue facing America.
Which it is.
Biden,
one of the biggest.
Biden returned when he got the opportunity and said, climate change is the number one issue. Bernie Sanders jumped on and he said, climate change is the number one issue. So Steyer didn't look too great, and in the fifth debate in particular, he did not have a very good performance. He has some strong viewpoints, and he has some admirable viewpoints, but his way of going about arguing why he stands among the crowd, it's more comedic than anything, because he doesn't look like a serious candidate while he's talking. And that reflects very poorly on his outlook as a candidate. But with that being said, we've talked about every single member of the fifth Democratic debate, and plus one, I guess, for Michael Bloomberg. But Yeah. So, do we want to talk about the future of some of these candidates, where they might go?
Personally, I think. Can I see your list?
Yes.
Personally, I think that the ones who are really going to succeed are Andrew Yang, Pete Buttigieg, Bernie, Biden, and Warren. They're fine. They have experience. Well, minus Andrew Yang. But they're also polling well. The ones who I don't think are really going to do that well consist of Tulsi Gabbard, 2%, Amy Klobuchar, 4.5,
1.5.
1.5, sorry. I can't read. Cory Booker, he's not going to do too well. And Tom Steyer, I don't even think they're going to make it in the next debate.
Yeah.
Maybe Tulsi Gabbard will. But and then also Kamala Harris. I don't think she's really going to go anywhere. She is trying to speak to as many people as she can, but everyone else has a better message, pretty much. And I just don't think she's going to really be able to go that far with that in mind. Whereas I feel like Andrew Yang, he stands out from the crowd. Biden stands out from the crowd. Buttigieg, Bernie, Warren, and just those guys, they stand out well. Whereas the rest don't, and that's why they're not really polling that well. Overall, I'm predicting that it's really going to come down to progressive versus moderate in the end. For the final, I don't think Biden is not going to concede till the day of the convention where the candidates are selected. And that, when is that? Do you know? Is that in May?
I don't know exactly. It's sometime in May, I believe.
Okay. Anyway, but I think Bernie is going to go all the way again. Warren's not going to concede. Biden's not going to concede. Yang maybe, and Buttigieg maybe, but Biden, Warren, and Bernie, they aren't going to concede until the last minute.
They have the most to lose because they're the most prominent candidates right now in this debate. So they have a huge stake in their reputation. So if they drop out, it really doesn't look good for their future careers. But that being said, they're very exciting to watch, and they are the big three right now. So really, any one of them would be a safe bet for the presidential nominee. It's just a question of will Biden's popularity diminish? Will his supporters grow disillusioned with how he's been in these past debates, especially since he hasn't really stood out as much as a top contender really should? And Sanders and Warren have a relatively split vote because they stand for a lot of the same policies and they're very close to each other on the political spectrum.
Well, and very close personally.
Yeah.
They've been good friends for a long time, and I was just thinking about the fact that they could possibly be each other's vice presidents. We've seen this before with Obama and Biden in the 2008 election, and we can see it again, where no matter what, whichever one of them, if one of them gets picked, the other will get picked as VP.
Yeah.
And I think that would be nice to see two progressives.
And remember that these debates are not to choose out the favorite among the crowd. Although we'd love for that to be the case, this is not the presidential vote. This is for who the Democrats think would be the best suited candidate to take down Donald Trump, who is
the incumbent.
Yeah, he's on track to become the Republican nominee. I mean,
he's going to be.
Yeah.
Unless someone like it's not Gary Johnson. Yeah, John Kasich. I was about to say Gary Johnson, but he was libertarian.
Yeah. So really, what the Democratic Party needs to decide is who is best suited to defeat Donald Trump. I would personally argue that we would need but
The country.
that they would need a rather aggressive candidate who can take criticism and can really bounce off of Donald Trump as an aggressive, good debater, and it's not looking like this more soft spoken out of the candidates can really do that. So we've seen Warren and Biden really get their voice out there. They've been on the attack a lot more in these more recent debates, and so they're really trying to reflect this kind of outlook, and they're really trying to adapt to a landscape where aggressive debating is how they're going to be what they're going to be up against. Sanders is very, very strong in this category in particular, and if I had to put my money on the best front runner to defeat Donald Trump, I would honestly put my money on him. I'm not saying that he's my favorite out of the Democratic candidates. I'm just saying that, in my personal opinion, I would put my money on him as the best suited out of the three. Andrew Yang is also a very interesting candidate. His policies are unlike anyone else we've seen before, and the other Democratic candidates, the way it seems is that they're literally too scared to get into a debate with Andrew Yang because he's backed up his points so well that they can't argue against him. Elizabeth Warren had in the fourth Democratic debate had to concede and say that universal basic income was most like her Social Security policy. So in reality, no candidate really wants to go toe-to-toe with Andrew Yang, and that hurts him because he hasn't really gotten a chance to have many strong debates with other candidates, and he lacks the relative charisma that someone like Pete Buttigieg might have. So, yeah. If we're not really gonna elaborate too far on exactly who we would pick, just because we don't want to bring personal opinions too far into this one, especially since American politics are it's a huge taboo, especially in daily conversation. We're just trying to use this platform to address certain problems surrounding the Democratic Party, and hopefully provide a discussion, maybe some information that hasn't really gotten out there among your daily conversation.
And this is all this radio show is about, is informing people and educating people.
Yeah.
Hey, if you learn something new, that's great. But at this point in the show, I want to have people call in. Eventually. I like when people call in.
Yeah.
I liked when Omar called in that one time. That was pretty cool. So, Ken, would you like to read out the number?
So, if you're listening and if you would like to call in, we appreciate all calls. It is 610-446-7111. That is 610-446-7111. And of course, we won't be able to actually have your voice on air because there's some certain legal restrictions around that. But I will pick up the phone. I will talk to you, and if you have a question, then we will discuss it. We will discuss it for you, and we appreciate any calls we can get. So really, if you have anything to say, please go ahead. We appreciate everything we can get. Mm-hmm. We also don't know if people are listening to the show, so
we would like to know.
Yeah.
So please call 610-446-7111 if you'd like to ask us a question or just anything.
Yeah. So it is 7:49 p.m. Do you want to spend these last, I don't know, how far do you want to go, Drew?
Maybe to 8.
All right. So we have 10 minutes left by those standards.
Roughly.
Yeah. So we're gonna spend this time to kind of like cool down. We usually spend our last few minutes of our broadcast just kind of talking it out, having getting out of the discussion we had before, so that we can just talk about other things that we like. So if you came onto the show and you saw that we were talking about the Democratic debates and that's really what you wanted to see or hear, then we thank you, and we're going to be talking about something else now. So, yeah.
So, Ken.
Yes.
Food versus food. What do you want to do?
Food versus food.
This is the topic that we run into often in this segment of the show.
Okay.
We don't know what to talk about
So,
ever.
We had a frozen Angus beef cheeseburger earlier today. That was my appetizer before dinner. So, with that being said, let's compare some fast food hamburgers. So, we're going to be talking about McDonald's, we're going to be talking about Burger King, we're going to be talking about Wendy's, and we're going to be talking about whatever you can really think of. Shake Shack is is local. We can talk about that.
I've never had
You've
Shake
never
Shack.
had. Okay, well you're gonna have to have Shake Shack. I'm gonna remind myself to introduce that to you later on. But that being said, do you have a preference for fast food hamburgers?
Five Guys.
Five Guys. I didn't think of that. Yeah, Five Guys is great.
I've never had In-N-Out Burger, but I want to try it one day.
Yes. People say that In-N-Out Burger is the best of the best. I don't know that because it's local to the West Coast, but I would definitely. love
Saying
to have
local
some.
is was a little.
Well,
Because it's in like what 10 states or something like that.
well, we don't have it over here, so it's local.
Yeah, to them, not to us. But then there's Five Guys. Five Guys is personally my favorite.
Yeah.
I love Five Guys. It's a little more on the expensive side, but I love it. They're reliable burgers, great taste, and when you order a medium fries, you get half the bag filled up pretty much.
Yeah, Five Guys fries are among the best out of any fast food chain out there.
Chick-fil-A's are pretty good too,
Yeah.
but they don't salt their fries, and that's why I don't like them as much. Five Guys,
The bag of
Like-
fries that you get is really like what tips them over the bar to excellence, and yeah, I personally really love Five Guys burgers, but they're not my favorite. So you haven't been to Shake Shack yet,
no.
so I need to bring you there sometime. It stands among everybody else. Just the regular hamburger with the Shake Shack sauce is one of the greatest things you can really get. They used to serve peanut butter with some of their hamburgers,
Huh, that's interesting.
but I don't think they do anymore. I believe we asked, my family went over and asked, but they stopped serving it for some reason.
Probably because of allergies.
Well, you know, it was really good, so I'm sad. But yeah, Shake Shack is really a standout in the hamburger industry. If you can find a way to grab that, it's one of the best hamburgers you can really get. Just get their their normal, what is it, Shack burger or something like that. The way they usually make it, and that's
Now-
what I would recommend.
What about Smash Burger?
I've never been to Smash Burger.
Smash Burger is like good, but also like they stopped serving the Philly Burger, which I didn't like. Like the Philly Burger was my favorite there, and it was pretty good, not gonna lie. But I just think the main thing is like their burgers, especially the times that I've been there, have been like really messy and greasy, which I don't really like. I like my burgers to be like nice, but they don't get my hands too greasy.
Yeah.
That's what the fries are for.
Yeah.
The fries are what get my hand greasy. But and then on the topic of a Philly burger, Haverburger. Haverburger is great. I love Haverburger. The service there is good. The food is good. I'm kind of endorsing them right now without intention. But their Philly burger is amazing. I love that. It's got fried onions on it, which to anyone that doesn't live around here, it's not one of those fried onion things that you put on a salad. It's a caramelized onion. Get cultured. And so basically, those are on there. It's got, instead of like just a flat piece of American cheese or provolone, whatever you want to put on your burgers, it's Cheese Whiz,
Yeah.
which is interesting. But it's really good on that burger. It's just incredibly good. You don't even need anything else on it. You got, I think it has jalapenos on it too, which adds the flavor. It embodies Philadelphia pretty much. In a burger. I wouldn't say it's like cheesesteak level, but like Philly cheesesteaks are like S tier, which is top tier. The Philly cheesesteaks are like top tier. Philly burgers are like right below that. Like they're pretty good.
Yeah. Notice how we haven't mentioned any of the big three yet.
McDonald's, Burger King, and Wendy's.
Yeah.
So my girlfriend works at Wendy's, and their burgers are pretty good. Wendy's burgers are like good. Personally, I like their Sauce'em burger, which has their signature Sauce'em sauce. I have no idea what's in it. My girlfriend doesn't either, for working there for like a year. But it's like incredibly good. Wendy's is good. They put bacon on a lot of stuff. And bacon on hamburgers and cheeseburgers is honestly like
it's
really
one of the
good.
greatest things we can possibly get in this world. Let's be honest. Whenever
I'm sorry, vegans.
Whenever I'm at a burger place, well, at like a big time burger place, what I like to do is I like to get the biggest thing I can possibly
Ooh,
get.
yes.
And so at Wendy's, that is the triple baconator.
No, but
Or-
have you heard of their secret menu?
I remember. Okay.
My girlfriend was telling me
I
about this.
remember
There's
that.
something called the T-Rex burger, which if you go to Wendy's and order, it's like a single burger, but with 10 patties in it. It's insane. It's crazy to think about. I can't even picture it. It's probably
I
gonna
don't
be huge.
think I could eat that. But
I know what my dad would say after eating it. Can't believe I ate the whole thing. That's what he would say.
my first time
Classic
eating
dad.
a triple baconator, it was a very good burger. Surprisingly, Wendy's patties have a strange. It's a little strange. They have square patties, if you didn't know.
It's good, but their patties are
Yeah.
fresh.
And on the outside, you would expect it to be a little dry, but they're not. They're very good burgers.
But that's because they're fresh and they're not
Yes.
frozen.
Yeah.
I've actually seen, because I was at Wendy's last weekend with my girlfriend, because I went to her work, and they actually, I was there probably 10 o'clock at night, a little afterwards. They had a truck pull up and start delivering meat in the middle of the night. But they don't, I guess they have a fridge to keep it cold, but
Yeah.
it's never frozen. They don't freeze it. And they just have them fresh there, and they order as much as they need for that day, and if they use extra, if they have extra, I mean, I guess they can just carry into the rest of the day, but I don't know how all that works. Executives and whatnot, managers would probably know better, but like they're pretty good. They're a pretty good burger place. But and again, okay, now we're at the final two, McDonald's and Burger King. The big two.
Okay.
Personally, I don't like either of them. Burger King, I like their onion rings. They're pretty good. And McDonald's has some good fries and a good milkshake, but that's about it.
I will
Personally, their burgers aren't that great. I don't like them. I used to like McDonald's a lot, but now I don't because of the whole Supersize film, Supersize Me, whatever it's called.
That
ruined fast food for me for a little bit, and I don't even really eat fast food. The only kind of fast food that I really eat nowadays is Chick-fil-A, which is I disagree with their management and their CEO and their policies and whatnot against that whole community. I just disagree with that, but I gotta say they got a good chicken sandwich.
Yeah.
And I haven't tried Popeyes yet, but I kind of don't really want to. Popeyes is not one of my favorite restaurants to go to. Their chicken's good, but Chick-fil-A is a staple to me. Oh my god, I'm rambling. But no, I'm gonna keep going so McDonald's, for example, it's just I view it as that unhealthy place around the corner, pretty much. And personally speaking, I just don't really like it. I mean, last time I was in there with Chris Smith, Owen Preman, and Jack Anderson.
Can you
and
say that?
I don't know. I mean, none of them are listening probably, so it doesn't really matter. But so basically, I was in there with them, and I don't know, that was the last time I was ever at a McDonald's, and I haven't eaten at McDonald's. Well, I can't even remember the last time I ate at McDonald's, but just personally speaking, I don't really like McDonald's or Burger King. I'm sorry for rambling.
Okay, that was a lot to unpack, but I will stand with you on Burger King because the Whopper is kind of overrated. I'm not gonna lie.
What about the Impossible Burger?
I have had the Impossible Burger.
Can you tell that it's a burger or not?
I can tell. It does not really. It tastes off, really. To be honest, but Burger King is it's kind of outdated, I would say, in the way that its burgers are. They're not really interesting in any way. In fact, if I had to recommend anything from Burger King, I would just recommend the regular cheeseburgers. But I will have to disagree with you on your opinion on McDonald's, however. See, they have in their like regular hamburgers, their McDoubles, they're okay. They're like average for a fast food chain. But what really stands out are their signature products. The Big Mac sauce is one of the greatest gifts we've ever been given to
What about the Szechuan sauce?
The Szechuan sauce is one of the greatest gifts we've ever received as mankind. And the Quarter Pounder is one of the best fast food burgers.
Quarter pounder with cheese.
Quarter pounder with cheese. It's one of the greatest hamburgers you can possibly get in a fast food joint, and it's something that although it's been at the forefront of McDonald's marketing, it should really be pushed more than it is right now. So Drew's going out to get a drink, so I don't really know what I'm going to be talking about. So we're going to be wrapping up our show pretty soon. If you want to call in last minute, our number is 610-446-7111. Again, that's 610-446-7111. We're going to be on air for maybe 3 minutes, 5 minutes more. So if you want to call in, if you're listening to our show, then now's the time to call in, I guess. Something just fell over outside. I don't know what that was. And he's back.
I'm back. I just wanted to finish my brisk iced tea that the vending machine, as I said earlier, scammed me on. Alright, well, kind of scammed me. Okay. Anyway, you're listening to 99.9 FM WHHS Radio Rediscovered.
Yes.
It's 8 o'clock now, and it's about time to wrap up our show.
We should be heading home soon.
Yes. Well, anyway, this has been a wonderful night talking about fast food and politics.
Yes.
The two American staples. But anyway, I'm Drew.
And I'm Ken.
Thank you for listening tonight on The Ken and Drew Show. Good night, Havertown.
Wait. What? Alright, cool.